You wake up with a strange heaviness in your chest. And before your mind has even fully opened its eyes, the guilt is already there. No clear reason, no obvious mistake, just a quiet, sinking feeling that you've done something wrong, even when you haven't. You replay conversations from days ago. You analyze your tone, your words, your pauses. You wonder if you hurt someone without realizing it. You wonder if you're a bad person. And what hurts the most is not knowing why you feel this way. Because how do you fix a feeling that doesn't seem to belong to anything? Guilt without a cause is one of the most confusing emotional experiences a human can have. Our brains are built to associate emotions with events. Fear comes from danger. Sadness comes from loss. Joy comes from connection. But guilt is supposed to come from wrongdoing. So when it appears without a clear source, your mind starts searching desperately for a reason. It invents stories. It scans your past. It turns ordinary moments into evidence against you. This is not because you are broken. It's because your nervous system is trying to make sense of a signal it doesn't fully understand. Sometimes, this kind of guilt isn't about what you did, it's about what you were taught. If you grew up in an environment where love was conditional, where approval had to be earned, where mistakes were punished more than they were understood, your brain learned something very early. If something feels wrong, it must be me. So now, even in moments of peace, your body waits for impact. You feel guilty for resting, guilty for saying no, guilty for needing space, guilty for existing without producing something of value. And you don't even realize how heavy that is, because you've been carrying it for so long. Neuroscience tells us that our emotional responses are shaped more by early experiences than by logic. The amygdala, the part of your brain that scans for threat, doesn't speak in words, it speaks in sensations. Tight chest, racing heart, a sinking feeling. And when your system learned that disapproval or abandonment was dangerous, it began to treat guilt as a survival tool. Guilt became a warning signal. Be careful. Fix something. Adjust yourself. Even when there is nothing to fix. That's why you apologize so easily. That's why you overexplain. That's why you feel responsible for other people's moods. If someone is quiet, you assume it's your fault. If someone is distant, you assume you did something wrong. Your brain is constantly scanning for emotional danger, trying to keep you safe by making you smaller, quieter, easier to accept. Guilt becomes a way to preempt rejection. If you blame yourself first, maybe others won't hurt you. And here's the part that no one really talks about. Some people feel guilty simply because they are deeply empathetic. Your mirror neurons are highly active, meaning you subconsciously absorb the emotions of others. You walk into a room and feel the tension before anyone speaks. You sense when someone is off, even if they smile. And because you feel what others feel, you assume responsibility for it. You think, if I feel this sadness, I must have caused it. But empathy does not equal fault. Sensitivity does not equal wrongdoing. And yet, your heart keeps confusing the two. There is a quiet kind of guilt that comes from outgrowing people, too. From choosing yourself. From wanting more than what you were taught to settle for. Sometimes you feel guilty, not because you did something wrong, but because you are doing something right for the first time. Healing can feel like betrayal when you were raised to abandon yourself for others. Boundaries can feel cruel when you were taught that love means sacrifice. And growth can feel like selfishness when you were praised for being small. You may even feel guilty for being happy, for laughing too loudly, for enjoying your life when someone else is struggling, for resting when the world tells you to grind. This kind of guilt doesn't come from morality, comes from conditioning, from a society that rewards exhaustion and calls it virtue, from systems that teach you your worth is measured by productivity. So when you pause, when you breathe, when you choose joy, your nervous system whispers, you're doing something wrong. But you're not. You're just unlearning. There is a healthy side to guilt. It helps us reflect. It helps us repair. It helps us grow. But unhealthy guilt doesn't guide, it punishes. It doesn't teach, it shames. It doesn't clarify, confuses. Healthy guilt says, I hurt someone. I want to do better. Toxic guilt says, I am the problem, even when I don't know why. One leads to healing. The other leads to self-erasure. If you've lived with unexplained guilt for a long time, you might not even notice it anymore. It becomes your background noise, a quiet hum of a subtle tension in your chest, a constant need to prove that you deserve your place in the world. But imagine what it would feel like to exist without that weight, to wake up and not feel like you owe something to everyone, to breathe without apologizing for taking up space. You are not wrong for feeling this way. Your nervous system learned these patterns for a reason. It learned them to protect you. But what once kept you safe might now be keeping you small. You don't need to punish yourself to be good. You don't need to suffer to be worthy. You don't need to carry guilt that doesn't belong to you. So tonight, I want you to sit with this question gently, without judgment. What if the guilt you feel isn't proof that you're bad, but proof that you've been trying to survive in a world that taught you to doubt your own goodness? And what would change in your life if you started believing that you are allowed to exist without apologizing?